Today we are celebrating the 4th anniversary of our coffee roastery, and to do so, we are going to take a look at all the wonderful products that we've developed. You are not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned. All right guys, so it is very hard to believe that we are already 4 years into this coffee journey, and if you guys are watching the channel from afar, you may be surprised to learn about the depth and robustness of this program. In just our 4th year, we've developed not only an extensive set of core whole bean blends and single origin releases, but as you'll see later in the video, we have an extensive lineup of cold brew offerings and also our roastery as it relates to our beer program. But to begin, we are going to talk about our whole bean program. I'm going to give you guys a quick overview, and as I do, I'm going to welcome in David, who is our head roaster here at Treehouse. So the first coffee, hey David.
Hey, what's up?
How are you, bud? Happy 4th anniversary.
And also with you.
Thanks, man. First coffee I want to highlight is our Pride and Joy. It is our flagship. It is designed to be a very crowd-pleasing product. It's called monochrome, and for me, it's loaded with milk chocolate character, some mixed nuttiness, and David's going to take you through a little bit more about the blend.
Recent developments, we've added our second farm direct coffee from Colombia, from maaaaaany from Cafe Primitivo. It's what we're using for our entire monochrome blend. A little more on the medium side of dark, but overall a solid medium roast.
Nice. Yeah, and so our core lineup is, intended to hit that crowd-pleasing flavor profile. House, which is the next whole bean that I want to highlight here, introduces a bit of a caramel and nougat note that's slightly different from monochrome, but strikes that same balance of everyday drinkability.
Yeah, so we, as of this next cold brew run, we are going to be working with a new farm direct coffee from Costa Rica as part of our house blend. So it'll be half of Ana's coffee that we use for monochrome, and then half of Diego Rebello's coffee from Achiare's estate. For the blend, yeah, so that'll be a farm direct, just like split two different ways.
Yeah, and again, David mentions farm direct coffees, and farm direct coffees, if you don't know, generally specialty roasters and wholesale roasters will buy green beans from a wholesaler as an intermediary between the roaster and the farms, and when David mentions a direct trade relationship, that means that we have no middleman, and we work directly with the farmers and create a direct feedback loop and also support them with higher prices. So when he mentions a direct trade relationship, that is what he's referring to. Next core blend that we have is Aurora. Aurora is on the lighter end of things. It introduces a bit of fruitiness and more acidity. So if that's your bag, so to speak, this is the coffee that you'd like to try.
Yeah, Aurora, classic light and bright blend for specialty coffee. You get that fruit character from an Ethiopian coffee that we generally try and pull through at least every year. And then the other half is a central, either from Peru or Guatemala. We've been doing Huehue Ntengo. Yeah, I would say overall that is probably the coffee team's favorite blend of our cores.
Nice. That's Aurora. Next blend we want to highlight is our espresso blend. To the layman, you might think of an espresso blend potentially as a darker roast or something to that effect, but that's not necessarily the case. The way that we think about formulating our espresso blend is to produce a very bright, potent, and beautiful cup. And to that end, our Paragon blend contains a natural process coffee which has that wondrous blueberry note.
Yeah, just to add to that, we've been using Peru's and Mexico's generally for the base of Paragon. And it's an espresso blend, but you can brew it in any way. I actually brew it as a Chemex at home easily. But the pop at the end is that fruity natural process coffee that we try and just find like the most like strangest, like wildest, like booziest, if you will, like coffee for it. So right now we're doing a Ethiopian natural from Guji. But we've done Colombian naturals, just anything like wild, just for that like 10% like pop of like fruit character.
Amazing. Yeah, and then the last coffee that we want to highlight is our Pride and Joy. It is our #1 direct trade coffee with our friends Pablo and Eva del Cid from Guatemala. We developed this relationship several years ago. As part of that relationship, Treehouse invested in their eco-friendly wet mill, and we've really developed a tight and close relationship with Pablo and Eva del Cid. One of the things that I learned coming as a novice into the coffee industry is that the value of a direct trade relationship with the farmer on the other side. If farmers don't have a direct trade relationship, they run the risk of having to sell their lots into commodity lots, essentially, which drives the price way, way down. So if you're accustomed with purchasing mass market coffees, those coffees typically drive the price of that coffee down, which affects the farmers on the other end and makes it really hard for them to be a sustainable, viable business. So with a direct trade relationship like we have with Pablo and Eva Del Cid, and in meeting Pablo and discussing this with him, this relationship gives he and his family some guaranteed income on a higher end of the price range that lets them maintain their farm, their standard of coffee, and their quality of living, which for me and for Treehouse is incredibly meaningful, and I think David can speak a bit more about that relationship.
I would say the Pablo and Eva Del Cid Farm Direct is probably the most farm direct I've seen in my roasting experience or green buying experience. You know, they've been here. They, you know, a couple of times they've toured. Even I think they were here like 2 weeks ago, just checking us out, see how we're doing, cupping coffee with us, cupping the new harvest of Estrelita.
Weren't you like hanging out at his aunt's house?
I was at his mother's house. Yeah.
Okay.
Just hanging. He was pouring me a pour over of the new harvest coffee without me knowing what it was, just to kind of like test me out.
Amazing.
Yeah, they're good guys. The whole team. But the closest you can get to like a farm direct relationship by far. He builds his own containers with all other local coffee. I know he gets coffees he sells coffees pretty much through New England. But yeah, he doesn't have to work through an importer. It's all him. So it's a very rare thing that I've seen.
That's amazing. So moving on from our whole bean blends, we want to discuss, in addition to that, David will source throughout the year some super esoteric, interesting, and as he described, weird single origin coffees that create expressive flavor, not only as a function of the way that they're grown, where they're grown, how they're grown, but also the way that they're cared for and roasted by David. So I want to highlight a few of those coffees today. The first one that we have available right now is La Soledad Even Montoya. And David, if you want to speak to that coffee.
Yeah, so we've been working with a Colombia-specific importer for at least as long as I've been here, buying single origin Colombian coffees. Shout out to Juan Carlos. He's been a buddy of mine for probably a decade now as far as like our coffee buying relationship. But we usually buy a couple coffees every year from him. This one in particular is a Churroso varietal, just one of the niche coffee varietals that I get really excited about when I'm roasting coffee and sourcing coffee for stuff. But that's a Churroso single origin coffee. Really happy with how it came out. Honeysuckle, nectarine. One of my, probably like the lighter of roasts as far as what we have going on right now.
So moving on from single origin, now we're going to move into the coffees that we've sourced and roasted specifically in celebration of our 4th anniversary, some of our favorite coffees ever. The first one is a coffee from Yemen.
Yeah, so that's a super limited nano lot. We only could grab 50 pounds of it, so naturally we're going 3.5 ounces on that. I was getting banana, I was getting bubble gum, cherry, vanilla notes. It was wild. And yeah, Yemen, you know, they're kind of the origin, you know, depending on what, it's either Ethiopia or Yemen, depending on like the folklore. I was kind of interested in getting something where coffee came from. It was a really small lot, but I managed to feel pretty good about it. And yeah, it's an exciting coffee. I hope you guys get to try it.
And then last but not least, we have our 4th anniversary blend, a very special and unique blend that David will take you guys through.
Sure. Yeah, we got the call to make an anniversary blend, so I found some natural coffee from Guji, Ethiopia, and then a Kirinyaga, Kenya AA. Yeah, just an opportunity to experiment. It's kind of like what I love about roasting coffee, not only sourcing the single origin coffees and making those inherent like taste profiles come out, but also being able to blend some interesting coffees together that nobody, you know, many people may not think to do, or if they do, like, yeah. Came out really good. We were getting more on like the natural side of the coffee, so a little more juicy, a little more like dark cherry, I believe, lychee. Yeah, it's an exciting coffee.
All right, well, that wraps up the whole bean section of our entertainment for today, and we're going to move on now and talk about our cold brew. David, thank you so much for your expertise and enthusiasm.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so a little over a year ago, we delved into the wild world of cold brew. And in that time, we started very earnestly with our original flagship blend, which was monochrome. From there, we have branched out to have anywhere from 8 to a dozen coffees at any one time, featuring our flagship blends, but also branching out into single origins, decaf coffees, lattes, and crushable lower TDS coffees. And to talk more about that, I'm going to welcome in Zach, who is our cold brew technician here at Treehouse, who can speak so eloquently and wonderfully about these cold brews. Zach, come on in, buddy.
How's it going, Nate?
What's up, dude?
Doing good?
Doing well?
Yeah.
So I want to kick things off with monochrome. As I mentioned previously in the whole bean section, this guy is crowd-pleasing coffee. It has notes of chocolate, fudgy syrup, and deliciousness. And Zach, if you want to elaborate a little bit more about the thoughts of conceptualizing monochrome.
It's for most people that are trying to either drink coffee black or they're trying to drink it with milk. I think that it's kind of like nice to have in our catalog.
It's certainly similar to coffees on the market, but there's a freshness about it.
Yep.
And an expressiveness that I think is unique to this coffee. So if you're familiar with sort of mass market cold brews, there'll be some familiarity in here, but you're going to find that it's much fresher and much more expressive, and it's going to surprise your palate.
Yeah.
So moving on from monochrome, I want to talk about the house blend, which again, in the whole bean variety, this welcomes in a little bit more acidity, tiny bit of fruit, but also that syrupy caramel note.
Yeah. One good thing to know about the house blend and also monochrome is that they utilize our direct trade from Anna in Colombia. Yep. And so that's just like a really high quality coffee for a really good price for us, and we just like get to give it to the customer at a good price too.
Yeah.
And that's just really important to us.
Yeah.
Just making sure that like farmers are getting paid.
Yeah.
We're doing our due diligence to give like good coffee at a good price. And then we do like rotating origins and stuff like that, and those are all direct trades. But with this house blend, it's like really important that we're nailing the extraction just so that we can like continue grow up our direct trade.
Yeah, I mean, that's an important point. These coffees do represent an incredible value because we're trying to accomplish a couple things here. We're trying to provide the customer with an amazing cold brew experience, but we're also trying to support the broader world of, coffee growers throughout the world. And we're offering them a good green bean price, and we're, keeping the costs down on our end by, keeping margins down so that you guys can have these coffees at, frankly, a lower price than perhaps you may get elsewhere. So it's a win-win for both parties. Moving on to talk about Aurora, as mentioned in the whole bean section, this guy is a bit more fruity and a bit more expressive.
Yeah, this is my favorite core coffee. It's what I like to call like a light roast drinker's daily driver, something that like can go well with milk, but like really like we know a lot of light roast drinkers don't drink it with milk, and so like for this it's really smooth, clean. That's something that I like really try to do in like the sourcing of this coffee is like find coffees that are really balanced. You don't have something that's ultra sweet, nothing that's too bright.
So the way that I like to explain a coffee like Aurora is that, it has a little bit of acidity, it has a little bit of juiciness, and if you're new to the world of specialty coffee, it can be a bit more challenging of a flavor. But much like IPA with beer, sometimes you have to take that leap of faith. So with a coffee like Aurora, I would strongly recommend pouring yourself a glass, drinking it black, working through those flavors, understanding that, acidity comes with flavor profile, juiciness comes with a flavor profile, and to kind of find yourself in the world of specialty coffee, take that leap of faith. Don't rush to add sugar, don't rush to add adulterations. Try to enjoy this coffee for what it is, because Zach here and team put a lot of heart and soul into making this coffee expressive and beautiful. And if you give yourself a chance to enjoy it, I think you'll be surprised. Next coffee we want to talk about is our espresso blend, Paragon.
I think of it like whenever I kind of want to have like a fun time with my coffee.
I love that, dude. Let's have some fun with this.
Yeah, it's like I'll be on the weekend and I'm like, is today the day? And then it's like usually like my first day off of the week, I'm like, I want something that's gonna like, hit a little bit harder. We do have a higher TDS on this, which is a strength measurement.
Yep.
And we also do increase the nitrogen just quite a bit on this one. So it's really good to give a little shake, pour out, has a nice head to it. A wonderful like espresso blend to represent like where coffee's at now. It has like a really good robust base, and then we actually do a separate extraction with a natural coffee.
Yep.
And that just brings like a little bit of that fruitiness, just a dash of that, and it really just like is a lot of fun.
That is Paragon. Last blend that we want to talk about for today is our summer blend, which we have dubbed Marigold.
Marigold's really fun. I think that it's nice to have summer blend because it utilizes like all the fresh crops that are coming in from Ethiopia and stuff like that. This one particularly came out like very, very clean. Got like notes of like oolong tea, some honey-like sweetness.
Yeah, it's a nice thing to know about the summer blends too. Like Zach mentioned, a lot of times, you know, David and Zach and Jordan here in the coffee department will try to source interesting coffees at that moment that will then go into the summertime or fall time or wintertime blend, and they may be one and done. So if you have Marigold this year and you enjoy that experience, I would strongly suggest, you know, loading up on it, primarily because that experience is ephemeral and you may not get to experience it again. Next coffee we want to highlight until we get into, you know, the rest of the lineup here is the Ivan Montoya, which is the single origin we currently have available as whole beans as well.
Yeah, this is a reoccurring coffee for us at this point. It's our second time doing it, I believe. Second time definitely doing it as a cold brew. This represents like where single origin like coffees from Colombia are at, and like really what I think of like a high quality Colombian coffee. It has just like a really nice structure to its body. It can be like put at a little bit of a lower strength and still retain that structure. And what that does is it brings some clarity to the acidity and the terroir of the coffee. Yep. Getting like a lot of like green apple on this, and just like it's really juicy. Again, it like pairs well with a lot of our summer coffees, and yeah, it's just really nice to like see year to year how these things change, just like hops, you know, all these things change.
All right, so that's kind of the currently available spectrum of our cold brew. That's certainly not all of it. In fact, I should have mentioned that this particular lot that Zach and I are describing is currently available, and we have probably another dozen beyond this that are in the rotation or we've offered seasonally or yearly, but this is just a snapshot of a moment in time in terms of how robust this program has become. The next coffee we want to highlight is our decaf coffee. This one is called Aperture.
Yeah, so Aperture is our second decaf blend. It is a little bit more of a robust coffee compared to the blend that is Boca. Like Nate was saying, we have other offerings going on, but this is our decaf at the moment. It has like a little bit of this heavy syrupy body, a little bit of the cherry sweetness, and it's really cool to, you know, see us source quality decaf coffees, and that's kind of like been a new thing to be able to get like good decaf coffees. I know a couple of people that don't drink coffee because of the caffeine, and they're really excited to like get their hands on Aperture or Boca.
Yeah, I mean, decaf cold brew in general is kind of hard to come by, and then, you know, specialty, really carefully sourced, sometimes single origin decafs are, you know, a 1 in a million essentially. So this Aperture represents that newer endeavor by the coffee team and I guess the coffee industry at large, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, so last one we want to mention here as part of our black cold brew lineup is something that I think Zach had a big hand in. It's called Summer Crush.
Yeah, it was a long time coming on this one, kind of just like thinking about form and how we express coffee. Think of serving size can be 12 ounces, 16 ounces, 24 with beer, and like we don't necessarily get to do that with coffee. And so I was just trying to think of what type of coffee I can put into a 16-ounce can that's not going to be overwhelming. Someone's still going to want to finish something that's going to be, you know, easy to finish 16 ounces of coffee.
Right.
So this is a Rwandan naturally processed coffee. It has a lot of like just dark fruit sweetness, and it still like retains a good coffee body at a little bit of a lower TDS. You're still getting like a similar amount of caffeine. You're still getting what we love about coffee, but just in a little bit of a a lighter, expressive way.
So one thing I also want to mention as part of the entire cold brew program here, it's not necessarily stated on all of the labels, but generally speaking, all of these coffees are nitrogenized. So you're not going to find a widget in here, but on the packaging line, as part of our quality control protocol to minimize the amount of oxygen in the can, but also provide you with a wonderful, thick, dense, creamy, cascading nitro effect, when you purchase these cans, if you give them a small roll or a small shake prior to opening them, and then pour them aggressively, you'll see that you'll have a beautiful skim of foam in all these cans. So, we don't go the extra mile and say this is nitro this or nitro that. That's just part of our core offering and part of our core ethos. And to kind of wrap up the cold brew conversation, I want to highlight a very exciting new product that just came about in the last couple of months. This guy is called House Latte. House Latte is a product of many, many trials and tribulations of product development. We went through several manufacturers trying to find the correct oat milk to make this guy bright, expressive, and creamy without that like oatiness that can come from oat milk products. So you may not even know that you're consuming a non-dairy product when you enjoy this. So for me, this is just a wonderful everyday drinker. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, having been a barista for a long time, it's nice to put all of the milk drinkers together, give them something that they like having, they want to have over and over again. I don't think it's too much on the sweet side. I think it's just hitting that nice balance for all those latte drinkers.
Right on, brother. So this has been, that's House Latte, and this has been a pleasure to have you sit down with us, Zach. Is there anything else you want to say in terms of how you think about the cold brew program and what sets it apart?
Without the support from the maintenance team, building our brewers, doing all that stuff, I think that also with a lot of our overhead, we can just do the nitrogenation to a T. We can really dial in all of these extractions with utilizing really good measurements on the strength. And I think that having a really great team with Jordan, David, and now Lauren, it's really nice to have people, 3 other people that care about coffee as much as I do, and have all different wants and interests in coffee. It's nice for me to work with other people to find what they like so I can offer that to them.
Sure.
Yeah, and I've just really been happy being able to offer coffees that I'm very confident in. And
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure to chat with you today, Zach.
Yeah.
I forgot we were on camera there for a minute. This has been a great conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for jumping in.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Anytime.
All right, so the last thing that I want to talk about before wrapping up today is how our coffee roastery relates to our beer program. One of the original impetuses for having a coffee program was to enable us to roast beans that lended the best, most integrated coffee character possible for our beloved coffee beers. I don't have a lot in front of me today. I have Nightcap, which is our decaf barrel-aged coffee blend, which is highly unique. And then I also have the Triple Shot Pink Bourbon, which features one of our favorite coffees of the last several years. So it's having this roastery that's behind us, having the expertise of David, Zach, and Jordan, who you guys just met, is critical to our coffee beer program being as good as it can possibly be. All right, guys, so that's it for today. It's been my pleasure to bring you guys behind the scene and discuss the energy behind the Treehouse Coffee Roastery. For me, it was a pleasure to get to catch up with David and Zach today and learn more about the intent and energy behind this program. I can assure you, having witnessed it from its inception, that it's much beyond what you may see from the outside. In fact, it's totally the opposite. I think what the team here at Treehouse Coffee Roastery is doing has no peer in the industry. I know that sounds like grand praise, but to have over a dozen cold brews to release coffees on the regular, on a weekly, relentless basis, on par with the beer program, I haven't seen anything like it. So I'm very excited about the future of the program. I'm glad you guys had a chance to learn about it today. If you are not already subscribed to the Treehouse YouTube channel, doing so will support future content like this. Thank you guys for watching and take care.